Welcome to the family, son.
I've played Resident Evil 7 more times than I can count, probably 100 times. At least metaphorically. But really, I've spent countless hours exploring every dark corner of the Baker estate, analyzing every detail of its horror. And if there's one thing that stands out the most, it's Jack Baker. Today, we're going to dive deep into Jack Baker's psyche, his transformation, and what makes him one of the most terrifying characters in Resident Evil history. This will be a comprehensive analysis, nothing left off the table. We'll even explore the Resident Evil 7 DLC, which gives us deeper insight into how Eveline entered the Baker household and changed their lives forever. So, let's get started.
Boy! Poor thing. You can do it. You better now? What the fuck? He's got it.
Before the horrifying events of Resident Evil 7, Jack Baker was an ordinary man, a hard-working family man. He lived with his wife Marguerite and their children, Lucas and Zoe, in a rural, isolated house. To the outside world, Jack was a respected figure, the patriarch of his family, someone who would do anything to protect those he loved. He wasn't always the monstrous figure that chased Ethan Winters across the Baker estate. In fact, Jack's tragic story is one of loss, of being manipulated by a force he couldn't control. His life took a drastic turn when he and his family encountered Eveline, a girl who brought with her a deadly mutagenic fungus, the E-series. This fungus, with its power to control and mutate, would forever change Jack's fate.
Stop it!
Don't you worry. It's a whole lot worse than it looks. Cleanliness is next to godliness, and your mother's pretty fucking close to meeting him right now. She wants me to do this. I have to show her how to go. She wants us all to show her our love.
Daddy!
You don't want to disappoint her now, do you? We can't do that.
What are you talking about?
Your new sister, Eveline. When I ask for rope, I expect to get rope.
Jack's transformation isn't just physical, it's psychological as well. When he first encounters Eveline, he begins to experience subtle changes, both in his appearance and his personality. At first, these mutations are small and manageable, but over time, they spiral into uncontrollable monstrosity. His body mutates into something unnatural, and his mind becomes enslaved by Eveline's influence. While the fungus causes Jack's body to regenerate and become near immortal, it also strips away his humanity. The father, the protector, begins to vanish. In his place is a savage, relentless killer who is more monster than man. But even in his mutated state, Jack retains fragments of his old self, adding layers of tragedy to his character. He's aware of what he's becoming, yet powerless to stop it. Jack Baker is not merely a force of nature. He's a sadistic character whose cruelty transcends mere physical violence. In Resident Evil 7, we're not just up against a monstrous entity, but a man who finds pleasure in breaking his victims both physically and mentally. His sadistic nature is revealed in moments that go beyond the bloodshed. It's about the psychological torment he inflicts upon those trapped in the Baker estate. Take the family dinner scene, for example. The scene is disturbing on multiple levels, not only because of the grotesque setting, but because of Jack's behavior. He doesn't just want to hurt Ethan. He wants to break him, to drag out his fear and discomfort. There's an almost theatrical quality to his sadism, as if he's playing a twisted game. As he forces Ethan into the dinner, Jack's laughter fills the air, almost like he's enjoying the show as much as the pain he's causing. Jack's sadism goes deeper than physical harm. It's about control. He enjoys having the upper hand, and the horror he inflicts is just as much about his victim's psychological unraveling as it is about their physical demise. He plays with their minds, toying with them as if they were pawns in his own sick game. It's evident in how he drags out Ethan's suffering through taunts and terrifying moments of silence, letting the tension build before delivering another strike. As Jack hunts Ethan through the estate, it's clear that he relishes the chase. He could have ended Ethan's life at any point, but instead, he prolongs the torment. The constant pursuit is a display of Jack's sadistic joy, and it makes him all the more terrifying. He enjoys the power he has over Ethan, and the fact that Ethan can't escape only amplifies Jack's sense of control. The pursuit is a metaphor for the psychological grip Jack has on his victims. He's never really gone, always watching, always stalking.
Do I have your attention, boy? You're about to see some wonderful.
Fuck!
But what makes Jack truly terrifying is the occasional flicker of his humanity. Amid the sadism and madness, there are brief moments when Jack seems to remember who he was when the man he once was breaks through the monstrous persona. In these moments, Jack pleads for an end to his suffering, begging to be killed, to be put out of his misery. These moments reveal a tragic awareness of his condition, a desperate plea from the man he once was. It's these moments of humanity that elevate Jack from just another horror villain to a deeply tragic character. In these fleeting glimpses, we see a man who once had a family, who once fought to protect those he loved, who now finds himself trapped in a nightmare of his own making. The fungus has stripped him of his free will, and he is forced to do its bidding. But these brief flashes of his old self highlight the conflict inside him. He's not just a monster, he's a victim too. Even in his moments of torment and pain, Jack's internal conflict is palpable. On the one hand, he's consumed by the monstrous rage of the E-series fungus, driven by its need for destruction. But on the other hand, he's a man who can still feel the loss of his old life, a man who remembers his humanity and his family. And it's in these moments that the horror becomes even more visceral. Jack is both monster and man, both predator and prey, both the cause and the victim of his own torment. This duality is what makes Jack so compelling as a character. He's a man who was once filled with love, hope, and purpose, now reduced to a mindless killer, driven by an unrelenting need to hunt and destroy. But in his rare moments of clarity, we see the man who desperately wishes for an end to his suffering, trapped in a body that no longer belongs to him. What makes Jack Baker particularly chilling is that we, as players, are forced to confront the tragic reality of his condition. He's not just a mindless monster. He's a tragic figure, cursed to suffer and kill against his will. His sadistic behavior is not just about the enjoyment of inflicting pain, but about the deep internal torment he's forced to endure. The horror Jack represents is not just the external threat, but the psychological devastation of losing one's own identity and one's own humanity.
Marguerite, open up. Found another one.
I'm coming. Oh. Oh, she's so young.
Yeah, how's our other guest?
Sleeping, poor thing.
Well, I say let him. He'll be okay here for a few days. Leastwise till we can get him into town.
Zoe, go get some fresh clothes from the laundry room, okay? Oh, looks like there's some sort of oil spill or something.
Yes.
Let's get this poor girl some fresh clothes and into a warm bed. We'll put her in Lucas's old room.
Oh, come on, can't you put her somewhere else?
Oh, Lucas, you just hush. You've long outgrown that room. Always wanted to run a bed and breakfast.
You got your big break, didn't you? Get her to bed. I'll put some soup on. Ugh. Good enough for soup, don't you think?
In Resident Evil 7, Jack Baker is not just a monster, he's a man who for a brief time still had hope. But all of that changed when Eveline entered his life. His transformation into an unrelenting predator is not just a matter of physical corruption, but a harrowing psychological conflict. In the End of Zoe and Daughters DLCs, we witness his slow descent into madness and how Eveline manipulated not only his body, but also his mind. When Jack first meets Eveline, he isn't a monster. He isn't even a man consumed by the parasite. He is still the father trying to protect his family. But Eveline brings more than just a disease. Her apparent innocence hides a power that alters the mental balance of Jack. Her presence begins to corrode the emotional stability of the family, and Jack is not immune. Jack appears confused, but fascinated. Eveline, the girl who seems to possess an almost angelic innocence, provokes a complex reaction in Jack. His paternal instincts are awakened, but so are fear, insecurity, and a desire for control. His mind is quickly flooded with doubts. Who is this girl really? And what is happening to his family? The truth, which Jack cannot fully understand, is that Eveline is not just a girl, she is a parasite, a mutagenic fungus that slowly seeps into the minds of those who come into contact with her. Jack, like the rest of his family, becomes infected by her influence. It's not just Jack's body that undergoes the transformation, but his mind as well. His paranoia begins to grow. From his perspective, the house itself starts to feel more hostile, as though Eveline has the power to manipulate his perception of reality. In the Daughters DLC, we see another aspect of Jack, his growing inability to separate reality from madness. The visions, the confused memories, and the constant feeling of losing control turn him into a being irreversibly corrupted. Jack becomes suspicious, paranoid, and starts to doubt everything, especially himself. The mind of a man who had a family to protect is slowly being destroyed, and the parasite growing inside him is a symbol of this psychological degeneration. But the real psychological pain Jack experiences is not just physical, it's the alienation from the people he loves. As Eveline's influence begins to spread, Jack faces a dilemma that every parent fears. His family is changing, and he can do nothing to stop it. His wife Marguerite grows increasingly distant and incomprehensible, and his son Lucas are more and more under Eveline's control. It's as if he is watching his family transform into something unrecognizable, unable to intervene. This powerlessness is what makes Jack even more tragic. His psyche fragments as he struggles to hold together what's left of his family. The parasite is eating away at him, but the most devastating thing is that Jack is aware of what's happening. He's not blind to his descent. He knows he's losing control, but his desperation pushes him to make impossible choices. His complete transformation into the monster we see in the game is merely the final step of a long psychological evolution. Jack, a man who was once loving, a husband and father, has become a monster, but he is never completely devoid of consciousness. The horror is not just in what he does, but in what he is forced to become a puppet of Eveline, a man who can no longer recognize his own humanity. As Jack begins to face his end, there's a final shred of humanity that emerges, a tragic awareness that he has been a victim of an uncontrollable disease. He didn't choose to become a monster, he was forced to. And though his death comes as a relief to him, his tragic end is not a victory, it's a bitter surrender. Jack Baker is a man who has lost everything, his family, his identity, and his soul. Eveline is the parasite that destroyed him. But what makes his fate even more tragic is that Jack was never fully devoid of awareness. His physical transformation was inevitable, but it is his psychological death that truly marks the end of his being. And that's the tragic descent of Jack Baker, a man who was manipulated, broken, and ultimately lost to Eveline's control. His story is not just one of horror, but of deep psychological suffering, making him one of the most tragic figures in Resident Evil history. But as you know, what matters most to me is hearing your thoughts. So let me know in the comments your opinion on Jack Baker and his tragic story. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into Resident Evil and other horror game stories. It really helps support the channel and lets me know you want more content like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.